Hey everybody, welcome to my discussion. Talking about all the Stephen King books I have obtained. Now I don't have a large collection of Stephen King books, and and I know a lot of people say if you haven't read a lot of Stephen King, or like if there's some Stephen King books that you don't like, if you actually say you don't like, God forbid, you're not a true Stephen King fan. Well, I disagree. But I digress. So I'm going to show you my collection, and I'm going to try to show you them in order of when I got them, but it's been a long time. And but it's not like I've taken like years to obtain all these books it's more like I got a handful of them before we moved here, and then I got some of them when we moved here. So let's start with my favorite Stephen King. I don't know why I'm talking like a Southern belle. This was the first Stephen King book I ever fell in love with, and that was Penny It, which is a book about a group of this town is being haunted by this mysterious entity that will take on whatever you are afraid of. And his favorite form is a clown, the clown, Pennywise the dancing clown. And he mostly goes after kids. In this group of kids, there's this group of kids, these 7 kids they're outcast in their hometown. And like the book is actually set in half of the book is set in the 1950s. So there was still a lot of prejudice or racial injustice. I mean, like it was like 10 times worse than this today, because I know a lot of people will say it's still bad today, but anyway, that's a whole other thing that I do not want to get into. So you have the leader of the group is Bill Denbrough, and he has a stutter, and the stutter gets a lot worse because his younger brother, I can't remember. I already forgot what the younger brother's name is. He becomes one of the first victims of Pennywise. And so Ben feels not Ben. Ben is another kid in the group. Bill feels horrible and feels awfully guilty and feels like he blames himself for it. And he becomes obsessed with stopping this monster and killing it. And in the 2017 movie, they implied that he still believed his kid brother might still be alive and trapped in the sewers somewhere. Like, he doesn't want to give up on his kid brother. And then you have Ben, who is my precious little butterball. He's so sweet, and he's a bookworm. He's just so sweet and caring and sensitive, and he's adorable. And he's my favorite out of the group. And I know you shouldn't pick favorites, but I do sometimes. He is known as the fat kid of the group, and he's like very sweet and sensitive. His dad died of cancer. It's just him and his mom, and they've just moved to Derry. And he has a crush on the one girl of the group, a crush that is also that Bill also has on the one girl of the group, Beverly Marsh, she's poor. Her dad is a janitor. She lives on the wrong side of town, and in the 2017 movie, she's actually seen as a slut. Like, they say that she slept around and I'm guessing this is in the book. I'm assuming it is, and they just include it in the TV miniseries. But her dad he has this thing that his daughter, she's his precious little girl, and I don't mean he really cares about his daughter and is protective of her. I mean in a very dirty, pervy kind of way. And he is very controlling of her and possessive of her. And all the adults in this book, they're all horrible people. They all just suck as parents. Except for Ben's mom is from, I don't remember, but Ben and Mike's mom are pretty, okay. They're not bad parents. And then you have Mike is the one black kid in the group. He lives on a farm. Now like I said, in the movie, the 2017 movie, this is again another difference. I think both his parents died, but I think in the book they're both still alive, or at least maybe his dad's still alive. I don't remember. And his dad actually works for the guy who is the father of the one that bullies them all the time. I can't remember. I'm already forgotten his name, but I'll get to that in a minute. And of course, like I said, this half the book is in the 1950s, so there is a lot of racial prejudice against Mike and his family. And then you have Richie Tozier. He's the kid with the glasses. He kind of looks like a nerd, and unfortunately has a problem where he can't keep his mouth shut, and he's known as Trash Mouth Tozier. He gets in trouble for it a lot. He's also the funny guy of the group. He does a lot of impressions. And then you have Eddie Kaspbrak, who is asthmatic. He has asthma. He has a very controlling and possessive mother. She's very like, the only friend you need is me, your own mother. And I filmed this video already once, but then I decided to refilm it because it was getting too long, but I still can't remember the word I'm trying to think of, hypochondriac. Now I remember, of course. He's a hypochondriac, I believe. He's more quiet and submissive, much more meek and timid of the group. And then you have Stanley Uris, who he is the one kid, the Jewish kid of the group, and he's bullied because of his religion of being Jewish. And he's kind of the good one, always trying to do the right thing and the moral thing. And he's more logical in his thinking. Like, at first he doesn't believe this entity is after them, that it's like, it's all our imaginations. It's empirically impossible. That's what he says a lot. So he's kind of the last person to believe in it, that it exists. To believe in it. And I love this book. It really goes into your imagination. It really gets inside your head. It just creeps you out. And it reminds you of what it's like to be a kid and what scared you the most as a kid. And it's very creepy, but then again, this is Stephen King. And this book is pretty long, but I think it's worth it. And he really delves in deep to these characters. And there's so much in his books that is not in the movies or even the miniseries that came out in the 90s. That's why I feel like it's hard to adapt his books. Like, it's a little bit easier to adapt his novellas and short stories. That's why I think they were able to do Secret Garden, because it wasn't as long. But although I think the movie did a really good job, I think both movies are pretty good. I liked them. I thought they were great, and I know a lot of people were like, oh, the 2017 chapter 1 sucked, and people are really mad about Jessica Chastain being cast, because I think it's directed by the same guy who directed her in Mama, I want to say. I think it was that one. So they figure, oh, he's got Jessica Chastain in his pocket, or she's got the director in her pocket, and some people don't think that she's good, an actor that could have an actor. I personally think she's good, and I'm happy that she's got the part. And maybe she does, maybe it is because, she's the director's favorite actress, so of course he's casting her. Maybe that's the case, but who freaking cares? I don't care. I just care that she's a good actress, and in my opinion, she is. I know not everybody thinks that, and if you don't, it's understandable that you're like, oh, the only reason she got cast is because she's best buds with the director. If you don't think that she's that good of an actress, that's fine. But it still kind of annoys me. I mean, yes, everybody's entitled to their opinion. But let's face it, we all get a little protective when it's someone, or something that we like. Because, unfortunately, we do live in a world where we constantly judge each other. But anyway, I am on part 2, part 3, where we get to the grown-ups part, where they've all come back to Derry as adults. But in the first couple, in the part 1 and 2, they do go back and forth between their adulthood, when they're we get a little bit of them as adults, but mostly it's kids. Like, kind of like how the miniseries did it, where, like, you have the introduction of them as adults, and we see them, but then they have this big, huge flashback of when they were kids, and the events of when they were kids, and what happened, and, because they end up thinking they defeated it. Unfortunately, once again, it turns out that they didn't defeat it, they just wounded it, and it comes back years later. 27 to be exact. And Mike, who's the one member of the group of 7, stayed behind, and he's the one who has to have the responsibility of bringing them all back and reminding them of their promise that if this monster came back, they would have to fight it. They were the only ones that could. So I do know that they're going to change things a little bit. But yeah, there's so much, they go into so much more detail, and there's other aspects of the story, like, Stephen King does talk about, like, one of its victims is I think a gay man, if I remember correctly. They kind of, they have that little subplot. And then there's an infamous scene in this book that you can't put it on screen. It's too inappropriate. But as good as this book is, and I definitely think it's worth it, I gotta admit, the ending is okay, it's just mediocre, it's not. But even Stephen King himself says that he's not that great at endings. I'm so sorry. Like, I still have this cough, and I totally forgot to take a Zyrtec. I think it was a Zyrtec. So I should probably go take one now. But this next one I have here is Salem's Lot, which is Stephen King's interpretation of vampire lore. And if you are not a fan of Stephenie Meyer's sparkly vampires, I know a lot of people have a problem with that. And it gets really old how people constantly complain that, oh, she made them sparkle, how dare she? She's not a good author. But, I mean, of course, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Because, yeah, I think, besides that, people getting mad and getting upset about that, I know that people also, there's things about it, there's other things about that people don't like that I do agree with. Like, I think people do have a right to complain about those things. But anyway, if you don't like Stephenie Meyer, you will like this because it's a lot closer to how vampires are supposed to be. And actually, I was watching Natasha from My Reading is Odd. She's been reading Stephen King's books in order of publication date, and what she'll do is not only talk about the book, but she will kind of talk about some background on when it was written, why it was written, basically some history about that particular book. And from what she said that Stephen King was a fan of Dracula, which I kind of admit I was not a fan of Dracula. I thought it was kind of boring. And that is what inspired the writing of this book. And maybe I think I spelled Salem wrong when I wrote Salem. But this is basically, like, Stephen King has a tendency to write about authors because it's something that he can relate to. So we have our protagonist, Ben Mears, who is an author, and he decides to return to his hometown because he wants to write a book about his experiences, this traumatic experience he had as a little boy at this place known as the Marston House. And when he goes back, to his old hometown, everything's, nothing super exciting happens. But then, but then he finds out this gentleman bought the Marston house, and that a vamp that and this guy has a mysterious silent partner who is living in the house, Barlow, and the people in the town start disappearing, mysteriously disappearing, and it is revealed that they are the undead. They have become vampires. And I mentioned Barlow because Barlow is connected to it, as in he just might be the vampire who is killing these people and turning them into vampires. And that's basically what this is about. And we slowly see the progression, how all these people suddenly turn into vampires, and it's about like how you start in this small town, and then eventually they're working their way to take over the world and kill everybody in the city and stuff. This is so creepy and so scary. I mean, I'm not one of those people that have a problem with Twilight, but I definitely understand why people would like something like this better than Twilight, because the vampires in here are actually scary and intimidating, and not just cool creatures that drink blood but have superpowers. Other vampires too, you could say they have superpowers with the strength and speed and stuff, and their eternal good looks. But I remember the part that freaked me out the most was there's a priest in the book that gets turned, and his transformation really freaked me out. And I think what freaked me out about it is because he's a priest. That's what scared me about the fact that he was a priest, a man of God getting turned. I mean, it's one thing if you see a regular person being turned, or a person that has a lot of faith and all of a sudden they get turned, but an actual man of God being turned into a vampire. It was just really freaking how Barlow did, because Barlow personally turns him. And that part that part really freaked me out. You can see this is very well read, and I do want to reread it again, and maybe I'll reread it in October. But so if you are a fan of how vampires are supposed to be portrayed, then you might want to check out reading Salem's Lot if you hadn't already. It's really good and really creepy. Now this was when Border still existed, as you can see by the price tag. Now this is one of his many collections of novellas that I read. I haven't read. I've only read one of the stories, a story that I read with one of my best friends and my sister, and we did kind of a mini book club. And I read The Longingers, which now thinking about it, it's kind of weird to think that my sister read it as well. I think she read it. But this is The Longingers was pretty good. It was about a group of people on a plane, and they somehow end up in another dimension, and when they are forced to land the plane and get out and trying to escape, they end up getting attacked by these creatures known as the Longingers. And there's only two people who understand what's going on. This little blind girl and this one guy that I remember being really unlikable and annoying. And funny, when I'm reading this book and if I remember the description, I kept thinking about the Longingers being like Pac-Man, but fuzzy. Fuzzy Pac-Man. I do not know why I kept thinking that. That's what I kept picturing. Fuzzy Pac-Man. And it was pretty good. It was freaky, and it was very entertaining. And that was the only one I've read. And I did start reading Secret Window, Secret Garden because I am very familiar, because that one is what the movie Secret Window is based off of. The movie starring Johnny Depp. Because they had to make it Secret Window because they already had Secret Garden was already a movie and a /book by Frances Hodgson Burnett. So they couldn't use Secret Garden. in the title, so they call it Secret Window, Secret Garden. And I guess saying Secret Window, Secret Garden is a bit of a mouthful, so they cut it down to Secret Window, Secret Window. In case you did not see it or not familiar with it, it is about this guy. He's a writer. Again, Stephen King writing about an author, and he is trying to write his next book, bestseller novel, and he's in a cabin in the woods. And this mysterious guy from Mississippi shows up at his doorstep and is like, "You stole my story." And of course, our main character's like, "No, I didn't. I don't know what you're talking about." And the guy even starts threatening his life. He kills this dog, which I really hated. Or no, his cat, actually. He had a cat. Well, no, in the movie he had a cat, I think. But in the book, I think he has a dog. I think. I don't remember. I have to look it up. But either way, he killed his pet, which I hated. And he set, I think he was the one who set fire to his ex-wife's house, because there's a subplot about his ex-wife had cheated on him with this guy, and he catches them cheating. And that kind of implies that it's kind of the hint of the plot that he's going a little bit on the crazy side. And the guy from Mississippi is like, "Alright, fine. If you want to admit it, you have to change my story." He's like, "Alright, I'll let you get away with this, but you have to change the ending of the story. And then I'll leave you alone once you do that." And of course, Mort does not want to do that. And that's when he starts threatening people. It's really good. And it's very interesting. It's good, and I definitely want to finish it. But of course, I know how it ends, how it turns out. But I think this is another one of those cases where the ending is different than the book ending. Like, the movie ending is definitely different from the book ending. So I want to read that, and I want to read the library. And this one also has the library policeman and the sundog, so I want to read those as well at some point. So this next one I have here is actually one that was a library book that I think my dad got it from the library sale. And this is one of his more famous, one of his more fantasy-driven stories, called The Eyes of the Dragon. And unfortunately, I'm one of those people that I have to read a lot of the book, and and of course I can't have too much time in between before I can tell you what a book is about. Because if I hadn't talked about the book already, I won't remember it and what it's about, and I don't. And I didn't get very far in it, but it's obviously a fantasy book. From Annapolis, Maryland. And that's why the book kind of looks a little battered, like it has this, and this is taped, because this was a book that had a plastic covering on it, because it was a library purchase. And I don't like that plastic cover. I mean, I'm not gonna if it's actually a book from the library that I'm borrowing, then of course I'm not gonna try to cut off the plastic cover. But if it's a book that was bought at the library, then I'm going to take off the plastic cover. So I found a way to do it. I actually cut it. So I accidentally cut the cover, the dust jacket, just a bit. So I don't know what this. Like I said, I have no idea what this is about. I just know it's a fantasy book about a dragon or dragons or something. And another book that was purchased from a library sale that I actually got this time was one from my sister's library sale. And that is another one of his fantasy books called The Talisman. He writes this one with Peter Straub. And I'm just gonna read the back to you. You are about to take a journey, a terrifying trip across a nightmare America filled with monsters beyond anything you ever imagined before. A journey into the dark heart of horror. The Talisman. Two of the world's best-selling authors team up in the ultimate masterpiece, a spine-tingling terror, the most compelling, most talked about most frightening book of the decade. And he writes with Peter Straub quite a bit. And like this, Peter Straub is known for Ghost Story, Shadowland, and Floating Dragon. So I might have to check out some Peter Straub as well. I'll have to look for him at see if our library has him. But I can't wait to read. Well, this print kind of reminds me of some of his movies, some of the movie titles. Like, or no, you know what? No, actually, no, it doesn't remind me. It reminds me of Stranger Things. The title of Stranger Things. That's what it looks like. The print. You can, I don't know if you guys can see it. Just the way it, the print of their names, the author names, under the title. It makes me think of Stranger Things, the title of Stranger Things. So I'm looking forward to reading that as well. Before I get to these new ones, let me mention the first set, besides It, which that's not my original copy. I had an original copy before that one, the kind of bluish cover with the clown, but the clown has simpler makeup on him. But that copy was a little ruined. It was still readable, but it was a little damp, and some of the corners were a little torn towards the end, not in the actual book, but like the last couple pages of the book. And some of them were a little folded over, were like curled. So I ended up buying a new copy and then not wanting to look like I had two copies, because I know most people that collect books will be like, so what? You have two copies, who cares? But I ended up giving that, but I figured I don't need another copy. I guess that's my mom. My mom's voice is telling, was the one who probably has made me think that way. But I don't think it's a bad way to be thinking, I ended up giving that copy to Terry, whose mom I know also loves Stephen King. And I think she wants to get into horror a little bit more, like actual horror books. Problem, like I said, with Stephen King is he writes a lot. His books can be really long. But one of the first set of books that I ever got by Stephen King was his Dark Tower series. So I have the first 6 books, and books 5 and 6 are a lot bigger than these. I'll show you those in a minute. So this is one of his more, again, another super fantastical series about this guy, the gunslinger. He's a bit of a cowboy, like the world he comes from is kind of Old West inspired, and he is chasing the Man in Black, the mysterious Man in Black, who's trying to get to the Dark Tower, which I think has potential to destroy the world, or destroy all worlds. So the gunslinger, Roland, is trying to stop him, the Man in Black. And along the way, he ends up in all these different dimensions, and I think that's what this book is about, like him going into different dimensions, the drawing of 3, you see 3 doors. I think that's how he gets to the other worlds. And he ends up in a world it's our world. And he comes across 3 people throughout his different trips into these different dimensions. This woman who I think I want to say she's wheelchair bound, and she has I think she has multiple personality, if I'm remembering correctly. And there's this young teenage boy, and then there's this other young man, and they go with him on this journey to find the Man in Black. And he kind of becomes a mentor to these people. And that's what the first, and now I know a lot of people have criticisms of the first one. They say it's not as good, but if you are interested in this series, like if you just aren't interested in any capacity and you just want to try it out, then don't continue. But if you are still mildly interested, don't just stop after this book. Like, keep going. He's one, the series does get better as the stories progress, in my opinion. It's not his best, although I do need to reread it, so. I got the first like I said, I got the first 6 books. There's 7 books altogether, and then I think there's one that's kind of an in-between book or a prequel book that he wrote that's a little bit shorter. But actually, it's the in the Wastelands, there is a mysterious train in the book. The Wastelands that is kind of obsessed with the riddles, like it actually has a mind and can speak to them. And I don't know why, but when the train makes me think of Thomas the Tank Engine from Shiny Time Station. Like a creepy, evil version of Thomas. That's what, it doesn't look like that on the cover of this book. But I keep thinking about, like, it looks friendly at first, but then the more you look at it and the more you realize how creepy it is and there's a darkness within it, that's what I keep thinking of. Thomas the Tank Engine. An evil Thomas the Tank Engine. And then there are, like I said, there are 7 books altogether. Dang it. I need to go running, but this cough will not go away. Whenever I go running in the cold, it makes it worse. So this is the 5th one. Yeah, this is the 5th one. Wolves of Calla. And then it's funny, this book 6 looks so much smaller than book 5 as far as size. But I'm not one of those people who is like, all my books have to be matching in size, because obviously they're not with my series and stuff. Because if it's a series that's been around for a while, then there's no, like, I'm not going to get all the books in the same, like, they're not all going to be the same. But as I was looking through this, when I filmed this the first time, I actually noticed that there are really cool pictures in this book. I think it's really cool. I did not realize that when I bought it. Yep, Daddy's home. My dad just got home. Okay, so next I have here The Shining. And most people probably do have some idea what this book is about. This guy's Jack Torrance. He has just been fired from his job as a teacher, as an English teacher, because he lost his temper with this kid. And he does have a bit of an alcohol problem and a temper problem, and also kind of messes up his marriage. And after he gets fired, he decides that he needs to take his family somewhere on a little vacation, and he also needs a new job, so he gets a job as a caretaker during the off-season of the mysterious Overlook Hotel. But, it's kind of isolated in the mountains, and it turns out that the hotel, the Overlook, is actually haunted. And it kind of starts to mess with Jack. It drives him a little crazy. And then there's also this subplot about, he has this, like, I think the kid is like 6 or 7, and he has what is called The Shining, where he can see spirits. And of course, at this hotel he starts seeing spirits, and it starts freaking him out a little bit. And that's basically it. And as you can see, I did start it. I haven't come back to it, but of course, being Stephen King, it takes a while before you get to the really scary, exciting parts. Like, he gives background information and kind of sets up his stories. So, but the family's already gone to the Overlook, and the manager and all the other people that work there during the on-season have left, so it's just the 3 of them in this hotel, and Jack is, like, fixing it up and everything, and Danny, the little boy, he's starting to see things and realize, okay, there's something wrong with this place, but of course he's only 6 years old, and he is not good at, executing and explaining to his parents, look, I don't like it here, it creeps me out, and Of course, in a lot of horror, the problem is when a kid says they're scared of something, the parent just dismisses it usually. They're like, oh, it's just your imagination. And usually, in the case of in fiction, usually the kid is not wrong and there is something not right. So I don't know if in real life that could happen. Because, I mean, I do believe there are spirits out there. But I don't know if there are spirits that hang around here and with unfinished business. Who knows? But anyway, and this one actually has an excerpt from Doctor Sleep, which was the sequel about Danny as an adult. But I, of course, want to read this book first before I read Doctor Sleep. And fun fact, Stephen King did not like the Stanley Kubrick movie. He was not happy with it. He said it wasn't, especially with the casting of Jack Nicholson, who was an amazing actor. No disrespect to him, he's great. But he wasn't what Stephen King was looking for in the character. He wanted Jack Torrance to look like a regular, average guy that no one would suspect him being a little crazy or a little, or dangerous. And Jack Nicholson does have a kind of look about him, and he has creepy vibes. So, but he's a good actor, so, I mean, and Stephen King actually did do his own version. I don't know if he directed or produced or just wrote the screenplay, but I know he did do his own version that was a miniseries. See, that's the problem with Stephen King's books. They are so long. So it's like you can't turn them into a motion picture without condensing them just a bit. And, of course, the movies, sometimes there are just things that don't translate well on screen as they do in a book. Because a book, you do not have the limitation of, worrying about making the story too long. You don't have to worry about casting anybody to play the parts. You don't have to worry about special effects. You're just describing everything. It's just you, the author, and you don't have to worry all about the extras. You're just using your imagination. Okay, so these next 4 ones are ones that I'm not as familiar with. Like, I haven't read them. Like, one of them I'm familiar with the story because I've seen a movie version of it, but I don't remember it that well. I just know I've seen the movie. So let me just go ahead and get to that one. And that one is Bag of Bones. And the movie had Pierce Brosnan play the title character of Mike Noonan. And as I said before, Stephen King writes about authors and novelists. And of course our main character is a novelist. And his wife, I think she committed suicide. And I don't know how long it's been. Oh yeah, 4 years. It's been 4 years. And he returns to where their summer house. He returns and decides he's kind of still trying to cope with his grief about her loss. And I do believe he becomes friends with the guy who runs the town, and his daughter and granddaughter. He becomes friends with his widowed daughter and granddaughter. And let's see. He sees ghosts that might be the ghost of he believes might be the ghost of his wife. So it's a ghost story. I thought like he finds like some bones or something. But no, it's a ghost story. Like, obviously, like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen the movie, so I don't remember it that well. I just know that Pierce Brosnan was in it. So I want to read that one. I'll have to decide which one of these. I think, like, the first one I'm going to read is The Shining. But every time I get a new book, I'm like, ooh, shiny new book. I want to read that one, like, right now. Okay, so this next one is actually another collection of novellas um, that Stephen King wrote. And it has actually, I think 1922 was the most recent adaptation that came out by, and that's in this collection. And I don't know what these, but I mean, um, I don't know. I have to take the time to go through this, but it's called Full Dark, No Stars. Like I said, I think the latest, 1922 is just came out on Netflix, and again, like I said, it's in this collection. So I don't know what the main overall theme of these, or this, well, of course, I don't know what the main overall theme of the other novella collection, Four Past Midnight. But yeah, I want to read more because I don't want to entirely dismiss a collection of stories, because I have read some, like Stars Above by Marissa Meyer. That one, the stories felt like incomplete. They felt like they were missing something. And then Kelly Link is a little too weird and out of this world for me so far. Now, I don't know. I am still going to read Stranger Things. But then maybe there's a difference between a novella and a short story. Maybe novellas will be more interesting to me than short stories. And the same thing with, I did not, reading Neil Gaiman's collection, Trigger Warnings. I think those were short stories, and that was just okay too. Some of them I liked. So maybe I just have a problem with short stories, but maybe novellas will be. Because like I said, I like the long fillers if I remember correctly. So maybe I like novellas over short stories. Maybe that's the problem. But yeah, I want to read that one. And I wish I could tell you more about it, but like I said, I only know that 1922 was made into a Netflix movie. Sophie, get out of my trash can. Out. Sophie, I'm right here. So, then I bought this one from the used bookstore, The Stand, and like I said, I'm uncertain if I'm gonna like his sci-fi stories, but this is one of his more science fiction-y stories about, I think, the town gets wiped up by by something that turns into, like, these scientists are working on something that turns into a virus, or a flu type virus that wipes out, according to the back, 99% of humanity within weeks. And from what Natasha, from my reading is odd, said, it's apocalyptic, and there's this woman, Mother Abigail, who is a healer, and she's up against, and the bad guy is this guy, Randall Flagg. It's one of those good versus evil type stories she said that it kind of reminded her of Station 11 with the whole apocalypse story. So I think I might read those together. I don't know. Like I said, every time I look at these books, I'm thinking, ooh, I want to read that one too. I want to read that one like right now. And the most recent book, and I actually almost bought another Stephen King book yesterday, but I ended up not getting it because it's on my Amazon wish list. And that is The Needful Things by Stephen King. And this is one I heard about from Jess Reeds. She said that this is basically about, and this is in Castle Rock, Maine. The people in the town go to this place called Needful Things, and this guy always has everything they need, but of course it's at a price. he asked them to do favors for him. And when I look at the plot of this kind of book, kind of reminded me of the fairy tale Rumpelstiltskin, where like you have Rumpelstiltskin who is like, okay, I will make the goal for you, but you will have to do something for me or give me something in return. And that's what this kind of reminded me of that. So I imagine as I'm reading this, I'm going to picture Robert Carlyle playing the part of Leland Gaunt. I think that's the shop owner's name. That's who I'm probably going to picture when I read the book, is Robert Carlyle as Mr. Gold on Once Upon a Time. So that is my Stephen King collection so far, anyway. I want to do kind of what both Jess reads and what Natasha from My Reading Is On do, where they are each reading their Stephen King books. But I'm not going to read them in a particular order. I'm just going to read whichever one I'm in the mood for. And like I said, as I'm looking at these books, I'm like, oh, I'm in the mood for that one. I read that one right now. I want to read that one now. That's why I'm so bad at TV. I've become really bad at TBRs. In the beginning when I first started my channel and when I first discovered BookTube, I tried to stick to TBRs. But since then it has fallen through because there are so many books I want to read like right now, and books that I bought that I want to read, and books that I'm feeling guilty that I haven't gotten to them because I've had them for a while. Hopefully I don't have to redo this video because I'm looking at the time here and it's gotten really long. So do any of you guys read Stephen King? Do you have any Stephen King books, or did you get them from the library if you have read any? Feel free to share in the comments below. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you haven't already. I would appreciate it. And as always, I hope you guys are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye.